The padlock on cabin 1-4 was cut at 8:17 a.m. on October 9, 2024, exactly 43 years after federal authorities ordered the structure sealed, following the unexplained disappearance of the Mercer family in 1981. And according to every maintenance record, inspection log, and satellite survey conducted since then, nobody had entered the building during that time. Ranger Ethan Cole expected what everyone expected: collapsed flooring, rodent nests, water damage, mold, decades of dust, and maybe a few forgotten personal belongings left behind by the family that vanished. Instead, when the door swung inward, the first thing he noticed was the smell of fresh coffee. Not old wood, not mildew, not animal droppings. Coffee. The second thing he noticed was the radio. It sat on the kitchen counter, quietly playing a local station from Pine Creek, a town nearly 40 miles away. The announcer was discussing a high school football game scheduled for the previous Friday. Ethan stood frozen for several seconds before stepping inside. The cabin looked occupied. A carton of eggs sat on the table beside a loaf of bread that felt soft when touched. A frying pan rested in the sink beneath running water that should not have existed because the utility lines to cabin 14 had been disconnected in 1982. A refrigerator hummed. Its interior light worked. Fresh vegetables filled the crisper drawer. Milk carried an expiration date from the current month. Nothing inside made sense. The structure had been locked by state order and monitored for over 4 decades, yet it appeared someone had stepped out only minutes earlier. Ethan radioed headquarters. Dispatch initially assumed he was joking. 10 minutes later, supervisors arrived and began documenting the scene. That was when Ranger Sarah Mitchell found the note. It lay on the kitchen counter beneath a ceramic mug. Written in blue ink on a grocery receipt were 8 words. Back before dark. Save dinner for all of us. Beneath the message was a date, October 7th, 2024, 2 days earlier. Investigators immediately assumed the trespasser had somehow entered the cabin, but the lock that had been removed that morning was the same government-issued lock, installed in 1981. Corrosion patterns matched archive photographs. The steel security seal placed through the latch remained intact until Ethan cut it. No alternate entrance existed. The windows had been painted shut decades earlier, and every pane remained unbroken. Forensic teams arrived before sunset. They dusted surfaces for fingerprints and collected DNA samples from dishes, utensils, bedding, and clothing. What they found created more questions than answers. Fingerprints belonged almost exclusively to the Mercer family, whose records had been preserved from the original investigation. Robert Mercer, Linda Mercer, their son Daniel, their daughter Elise. Every major surface inside the cabin carried their prints as though they had been living there continuously. No modern fingerprints appeared anywhere except those left by responding personnel. Even stranger, the food showed no signs of contamination or preservation techniques. The bread had been baked within 48 hours. The vegetables were fresh. The milk came from a dairy operating in a neighboring county. Receipts found in a kitchen drawer reference purchases made less than a week before the cabin was opened. Security footage from stores listed on those receipts revealed no Mercer family members. In fact, nobody matching them had appeared in the area for decades. As investigators dug through county archives, another anomaly surfaced. The original disappearance case had never fully matched public reports. Newspapers from 1981 claimed the Mercers vanished during a camping trip. Internal files told a different story. Deputies responding to the cabin that year reported evidence suggesting the family had eaten dinner together shortly before disappearing. Plates remained on the table, a radio was playing, beds were unmade. A pot of stew sat warm on the stove despite nobody being present. One deputy described the scene as a paused moment rather than an abandoned residence. That statement had been removed from public versions of the report. The more researchers reviewed historical documents, the stranger the timeline became. Witnesses claimed seeing the Mercers in Pine Creek weeks after they supposedly vanished. One gas station attendant insisted he sold gasoline to Robert Mercer in 1987. Another witness swore she spoke with Linda Mercer at a grocery store in 1996. Every sighting was dismissed because the family was legally declared dead. Then, investigators discovered something buried inside an evidence box from 1981. It was a cassette tape recorded by a deputy conducting a walkthrough of the cabin hours after the disappearance. The tape had never been digitized. When technicians restored it, they expected static and routine observations. Instead, near the end of the recording, the deputy stopped speaking. For 17 seconds, another voice could be heard in the background. It was faint, but understandable. "They're coming back," then silence. The deputy never mentioned hearing the statement. He died in 2003. By November, state authorities quietly expanded the investigation. Detectives traced every receipt recovered from the cabin. Most transactions originated from stores that maintained digital records. Surveillance footage showed ordinary customers making those purchases. Yet when payment information was reviewed, every transaction had been completed using cash. No faces connected to the Mercer family appeared anywhere. During a second forensic sweep, investigators opened a bedroom closet that initially seemed empty. Hidden beneath loose floorboards, they discovered dozens of notebooks. At first glance, they looked like journals. Each contained entries written by different members of the Mercer family. The handwriting matched authenticated samples from 1981. The entries appeared sequential, daily, continuous. One notebook described events from 1983. Another referenced a presidential election in 1992. Another discussed a wildfire in 2007. The final volume ended with an entry dated October 6, 2024, one day before the note on the counter. Every writer described living inside the cabin normally, cooking meals, listening to the radio, reading newspapers, watching seasons change through windows. But one detail repeated throughout all 43 years of entries: they never left. According to the journals, every attempt to walk beyond the tree line resulted in returning to the front porch minutes later, regardless of direction traveled. Detectives initially assumed the notebooks were an elaborate hoax, until handwriting experts concluded the entries appeared genuinely written over decades, rather than fabricated at once. Ink aging tests supported the timeline. Paper degradation matched expected intervals. Nothing suggested forgery. The discovery triggered federal involvement. Portions of the area surrounding Cabin 14 were temporarily closed under Environmental Review Authority. Ground-penetrating radar surveyed the property. No tunnels, no hidden structures, no evidence explaining how fresh supplies entered the building. Then came the event that ended public discussion. On December 14, 2024, a survey team installed motion-activated cameras throughout the cabin. Equipment streamed continuously to a mobile command trailer parked half a mile away. At 2:13 a.m., every camera feed briefly lost signal for exactly 11 seconds. When transmission returned, 4 additional place settings appeared on the kitchen table. Personnel reviewing footage found no visible cause. Frame-by-frame analysis revealed only a brief burst of distortion resembling heavy analog interference. The cameras never captured anyone entering or exiting. Investigators rushed to the cabin. The table contained 4 warm plates of food. Steam rose from the meals despite no active cooking source. One plate held a folded note. The handwriting matched the message discovered in October. It read, "You opened the door too early." No fingerprints were recovered. No DNA. No footprints in the snow surrounding the structure. The following morning, federal vehicles arrived and removed all evidence. Access roads were closed. Records became restricted. Cabin 14 was sealed again, this time behind fencing, surveillance systems, and a jurisdictional designation that prevented public access. Official statements cited structural hazards and environmental concerns. Most people accepted the explanation. A few didn't. Years later, retired Ranger Ethan Cole agreed to discuss the incident during a documentary interview. Near the end of the recording, the interviewer asked him what details still bothered him most. Not the food, not the journals, not the note. Ethan paused for several seconds before answering. He said that while standing inside the cabin on opening day, he noticed a family photograph hanging beside the fireplace. It showed Robert, Linda, Daniel, and Elise Mercer smiling on the front porch. Behind them, partially obscured by shadows near the doorway, stood a fifth person. Investigators initially assumed it was a photographic defect. But when the image was digitally enhanced, the face became clear enough to identify. It was Ethan Cole. The photograph was dated July 1981. Ethan was born in 1989. The documentary ended there. What happened inside Cabin 14 remains officially unexplained. The building still appears on government maps, though no public road reaches it anymore. And according to a maintenance worker who spoke anonymously in 2025, every few weeks, someone inside the sealed cabin turns on the radio.